Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Monday, April 5th, 2021. I'm Andrew Hansen alongside Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach. And we have a big Monday here, Coach. It's NCAA championship night in college. It's Masters week. And oh, by the way, we have a 7-game NBA DFS slate.
Hey, and what about a little baseball in there
Sure. How about
too?
a little Monday baseball, first full week of the season?
We've got everything going. It is a blast, man. We had so much fun this weekend, and had wins in all three of the major sports. Obviously, basketball, baseball, and golf. And just a fun week. We had our second weekly meeting on Saturday with our members. Great time there. Super insight from a bunch of our folks there. So great to hear from all the wave off and Godfather of Gains and the whole crew. And by the way, you mentioned the NCAA finals. Do you know that we already have a winner
Yes.
without even having to win this championship game?
Yes.
Mr. B. Jordan, congratulations for winning the first annual Coach Talk NCAA Bracket Challenge.
That's right. And JP Wild coming in second, and you didn't quite finish it off, so you did doff your cap there at the appropriate time when you were in the lead, but we knew that it was unlikely to finish it out. But oh, by the way, how about Saturday night? That second semifinal game. What an incredible
Classic.
game.
One of the
And
best.
yeah,
Yeah,
awesome. That was a lot of fun to watch.
that was amazing. It just was so many twists and turns. It was a fun game. Definitely the reason why you love, the NCAA March Madness stuff. So yeah, I took my two minutes of fame there, and I was up there for a while.
That's right.
But I was fired up for those guys, and JP Wild, man, there you go, 4 contests in a row. He's come out with prizes, so he's still the master game player of all of our members, no doubt about it. But
Absolutely.
no reason to take the shine off B Jordan, because that's still a great win. This was a crazy tournament to pick, other than Gonzaga.
Right. And
So
and the great thing about tonight in terms of the schedule is that the NBA has a really heavy front loaded schedule with all these
yeah.
7 o'clock games and only one 8 o'clock game, so that they'll almost all be done when the NCAA tournament really gets picked up for that championship game. And I love this slate with all the news that we'll get right before the first 6 games to be able to sort everything out at the same time. So let's get after it here, Coach. With the 7 games, we only have 4 teams involved in a back-to-back and only
Yeah.
one game over 230, which I'll get to describe here. Finally, I get a good matchup in that Sacramento-Minnesota game, but you get to start us with what, Washington and Toronto?
Yeah, it's an interesting game. I mean, and I agree with you. I love the fact that we'll have all this news. We won't have to be sweating through the night to make a bunch of swaps. So this will be pretty cool. But it is Toronto's a 4.5 point favorite, first night of a back-to-back at home, if you will, in Tampa, if that's what you want to call home. Nice number here, Andrew, 228.5. Other than that monster game you have here in the slate, this is probably the second best from the total standpoint, but we need the key news. There's the two key guys in this game that are questionable are Bradley Beal and Fred VanVleet. I mean, that swings the entire outlook of this game. Two key players, the top scorer for Toronto or second, and then same top scorer in the NBA with Beal. So hopefully we will get that news beforehand. I'm sure we will, and that'll really have and how much we stack this game or not is going to be determined on that. As far as pace, you got to love it. First for Washington, still Toronto's 12th, so they are playing faster. Defensively, Washington's 26th, which we know we've targeted their games. Toronto is 12th, which is respectable, but not phenomenal by any stretch. So we along with Beal news being questionable, we know that Hashimura is out. So that's news that just came up a bit ago that was posted by one of our good members in our main chat. And that those 40 minutes that he's been playing almost are huge minutes that have to go elsewhere. Last game, a lot of them went to Advia and Bertans, and a little bit with Matthews, but there's a lot of minutes there and usage to be had. Certainly, Hashimura has become Westbrook's sort of running mate, so that will break out. And then, other than Van Vliet, Hood is out for Toronto. So right now, like I say, as you look at it, if Beal's out, Westbrook's the play. I mean, no kidding. That's what we've been doing, and it hasn't really failed us yet. One time he barely made it, but still the potential for blow up there with Westbrook without Beal is huge. And then without Van Vliet on the Toronto side, if he doesn't play, I think you have to go to Pascal Siakam. I mean, he's a big handler of the ball, and they run a lot of plays for him. They clear out the side. And so, with the usage that's spread out when Van Vliet's out, and we know Lowry's still out, then Siakam is really the guy. So it's pretty easy for me. I mean, I'm not eliminating either Westbrook or Siakam, even if Beal and Van Vliet are in, but they're 100% lock and load, 100% ownership in cash and GPPs if those other two guys are out. And then, as far as value here, although he's not super cheap anymore, OG Anunoby's been really solid. And I don't know if it's, picking up some of the extra usage with Lowry out and Powell now traded, but, he's just consistently hitting the glass. He's consistently even scoring, which was, something he was the one thing he wasn't doing as much because, he's going to get some steals and an occasional block. So Anunoby's definitely in play for me. Boucher, if he starts, is going to be very popular because, when he gets run, he does well. So, I mean, it looks like you never know with Nurse, though. There is a little fear there that all of a sudden Boucher has one of his 18-minute games. But I believe that it looks as though, he's penciled into the starting lineup. He started the last game. And I think, he could have a good one here. His price is just average, but it's worth looking at. And then the last guy on Washington side, Denny Advia, he had like 21 fantasy points in the last game, but his minutes are up and he rebounds well. He's a big dude. If he just can knock down a few more shots, his percentage is bad. I think he'll be okay. So with Hashimura out, and if Beal sits, I know Bertans will chuck some threes, but by default, sort of Advia is like the next best option for Westbrook to look to. So I think you gotta give him some significance here. So reason I've spent so much time on this first game, Andrew, is I think that other than that huge Sacramento Minnesota game. This game is definitely deserved of the over-under points. And I wouldn't be surprised. I'll just shoot right out of the gate here. I bet you 6 of my guys come from this game and the Sacramento-Minnesota game. And I have a couple of one-offs from the other games because these two have the potential with the way everything lines up to just be the two monster games on the slate.
Yeah, I could end up with that many as well. Maybe 5 or 6. We'll see how the news plays out. On the
Right.
Washington side, I do like those starters that you mentioned the most: Russell Westbrook, Avdia, Bertans. Bertans getting back into the mix here after that calf injury. He played 20 minutes, and with Rui out, he really should be that guy on the perimeter that Westbrook will look to while he's out there, and he's really cheap on both sites, 3,600, 3,700. He can be very scoring dependent. But I'm really intrigued with Bertans here tonight, so I'm going to keep playing with
Nice.
that. On the Toronto side, I'll certainly look at Van Vliet if he starts. If he doesn't, then we got to think about Malachi Flynn, really cheap. He had a great game last time out. He has not been a good points per minute guy, so that's a tricky one. If he starts, does he just really distribute more, and does Trent get a ton of shots? OG, like you said, has stepped up. Pascal Siakam. So he's the type of value play that I think could hit value, but he's not necessarily locked in for me if Van Vliet is out. But I do want to get one or two of these Raptors against this awful Washington defense.
Yeah, I mean, you almost have to. What about Boucher? You didn't mention him. I know he's always sort of an enigma trying to figure out what he's going to do, but he
Yeah,
can break a slate, you know?
I know what an X factor he could be. There's a few other centers I like on this slate more that I trust more, but
Yeah,
he's one of those guys that it's scary to fade at that price in what could be one of the two highest scoring games on the slate.
I'm with you.
All right, game two, New York and Brooklyn. This one should not be as high scoring, but they've had some decent totals. They would have gone over the number the last couple times they've played. It's 216.5 tonight. Brooklyn favored by 4.5, and we have a lot of question marks on the Brooklyn side, should we say?
I would say.
Durant seems to be getting closer, but I'm going to call
Right.
him highly doubtful today. Harden has the question mark. He's been out a little bit with the hamstring issue. It is a back-to-back for Brooklyn, so does Kyrie sit potentially? And that's a big flip there with Kyrie and Harden. Which one plays, or do they both play? And then how about question marks for Shamit, Tyler Johnson, Blake Griffin? I'm calling questionable since it's a back-to-back. He sat out the last back-to-back, so we're gonna see how this plays out. But this is that slow pace with New York and their great defense against a better pace for Brooklyn and their bad defense.
Right.
And then Brooklyn's still the number one offense in the league. So on the New York side, let's start there because it's a little bit simpler. I'm only going to look at a couple of these starters. Randall has absolutely dominated Brooklyn. He's averaged 57 fantasy points in their two meetings.
Wow.
So whether Blake Griffin is out there or Jeff Green, LaMarcus Aldridge, I don't think there's anybody that can stop him.
Yeah.
It's a pretty significant price tag in the 9K range, but he's playable for me. And then Elf Payton, here's the question mark because talk about inconsistency. 2 games ago against your Mavericks, he only got 14 minutes, didn't do much. And then in
Yeah.
25 minutes against Detroit, he put up 38 fantasy points in the 4K range.
Crazy.
And we know that Kyrie Irving's not going to lock him down if Kyrie's out there. So Elf Payton is in play for me. RJ Barrett, he's been a little bit down lately, so he's not my favorite guy. But basically, the point is, I'm only going to play one of those three starters for New York, or I'm not going to play anybody. Those guards got really messy last game with Burks and Quickly and Rose and Bullock getting a bunch of shots. So I'm not messing
Yeah.
with those guys. It's probably either Peyton or Randall or past the New York side. And on Brooklyn, if Kyrie's the only stud and he's out there, he's playable. He's not my favorite guy though. I'd rather pay up for potentially Westbrook or De'Aaron Fox coming later. So probably won't get to Kyrie. If I play anybody on Brooklyn, it's probably one of the value guys. And I think there could be a couple solid value options here because if Harden and Durant are out, and Shamit and Johnson and Blake Griffin, then Jeff Green steps up. He's a good price still, especially on FanDuel. He's only 4,500. And then on the bench, I think TLC is the main scorer off the bench. He's in the 3K range. I like his potential. And how about the deep sleeper, Alize Johnson? GPP option if all those big guys are out. He put up 50 fantasy points against Utah, so he's got some good potential. But it would be more likely TLC as the value play. So potentially, even though it's not a really high scoring game here, I could have Peyton on one side and somebody like TLC on the other.
Interesting. Yeah, for me on this in this game, I really don't care about all this Brooklyn news with Harden and Irving and Gordon, or not Gordon, but
Durant?
Griffin.
Oh,
Griffin, I'm
Griffin,
trying
yeah.
to say. Yeah, because those guys are all potential sit or play, but I don't like the Brooklyn side at all. I mean, I think it is a back-to-back. They're going to use quite a few guys. Just really not comfortable against this Knicks defense. I'll tell you, the Knicks slowed down everybody. they slowed the Mavericks down in that game to a halt. That game was in the 90s for a while, but it was just a slow, uh, you know, deliberate game, and that's what Thibodeau plays, and that's why they've won. They're 500 and in the playoff hunt. So I'm not going to go with those high-priced Brooklyn guys. I'm not paying up for Harden or Irving, regardless if one plays and one sits. And then it was amazing to me that there's sort of a seismic shift here in the rotation for Brooklyn that I noticed and watched quite a bit over the weekend. It looks as though Nash is going to play LaMarcus at center,
Yep.
and then Griffin play some center. So to me, DeAndre Jordan is the odd man out. He's like fourth string right now, and Claxton isn't even getting the big minutes. So, I think that's a huge difference in strategy, and it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up, when everybody's back, playing Harden, Irving, KD, Aldridge, and Griffin, those five. Talk about all-star appearances and everything. But it seems like that plays more into their offensive game, and they can outscore anybody. It's not like saying, hey, can you outscore everybody if you're going to use that strategy? Well, yeah, they can. They're the number one offensive efficient team in the league. So that really downgrades the interior. The only guy now that I'm going to watch closely, I'm not going to roster him tonight, but LaMarcus Aldridge he stepped in first game, no practices, and was like a key player on their team. So I thought that was amazing. I even watched him splash a 3 this weekend. So he's stoked up and reborn. And Griffin looked really good too. So it's funny how these guys can get new life when they get on a team that is good. So anyway, I think it's just, a little messy right now with Brooklyn. Once they get KD back, get some of that rotation set, then I can start looking at them in games where they're playing a poor defensive team. But they're playing the Knicks. The Knicks are top 4 in the league in defensive efficiency and pace. They just slow it to a screeching halt as the slowest team in the league. The guy that I like, Andrew, and my number one pay-up guy, this is going to be my one-off pay-up guy that's not in those 2 high-scoring games. And it's exactly what you said, Julius Randle. I mean, he's murdered this team, and I don't think they have anybody that can stop him. They'll try to throw Jeff Green on him a little bit. They'll try to switch things up, but he's playing great. He wants to be the king of New York, if you will. And, the fans are going nuts for him. And you'll see a lot of Knicks fans. You'll hear them at this Brooklyn game as well. Even though Brooklyn is the team to beat, in my opinion, the Knicks still own that town. And I just think Randall comes out and rocks this team. And, I'm going to predict he's the highest scorer on the slate. So there you go.
Wow.
And yeah. And as far as, the other parts of New York, we had gotten a decent amount of play over the weeks with Noel when Mitch was out. But now that's changed. It's really a split time with Taj Gibson, who's getting nice minutes. I wouldn't play him, but he's getting nice minutes and finishing games. And like you said, right now, that Knicks backcourt, it's hilarious. There's 6 guys that need time, and they're all good. I mean, and it seems like the fact of the 6, the guy you'd expect, in my opinion, to get the least shots is Bullock, and he had the most shots. So it's bizarre with trying to get, quickly in, and Peyton, sometimes he takes a leadership role. Sometimes he gets limited minutes. So don't want any part of trying to figure out Tibbs' brain on that rotation of guards. So this game was going to be a one and done, one off, but a key play for me on this slate, and that's Mr. Julius Randle.
Yeah, and I agree with you on everything you said about Brooklyn and that lineup. The one tweak I would say is don't forget about Joe Harris eventually. And I think the question mark is, do they play Durant at the 4, and does Blake Griffin come off the bench and back up LaMarcus Aldridge? But the other thing about LaMarcus Aldridge and tonight is I wouldn't be shocked if he sits, since it's a back-to-back. And I agree with you that DeAndre Jordan is going to be the odd man out, but he might actually start tonight if everybody sits. And I'm not going to play him, but it could just be a really short roster, and then that's why I'm interested in a couple of these bench guys. So we're going to see how it plays out.
Yeah, it's definitely got a lot of intrigue. There's no doubt about it. All right, I'll jump into game three here. Utah Jazz and the Dallas Mavericks. Right now, Utah is favored by 5.5. It's a 225.5 over under. Uh, Problem is, two slow paced teams. Dallas 16th. Dallas 24th. Utah 16th. And the defense, Utah third. We know they're shutdown defenders. And I gotta take my hat off to Dallas. They've since the All-Star break, they went from 25th to 15th in defensive efficiency. So, the couple of changes that they made are working, and they definitely are defending better. But part of that is skewed because they played lesser teams than they had played prior. But still, I mean, that's a big jump up. They had dropped one below Brooklyn for a week, if you remember that. So good to see them playing a little bit better D. The big news here is KB and Josh Richardson, two starters for Dallas, are questionable. And from what I read this morning, I think both of them are doubtful in my brain. So, but they're right now they're designated as questionable. So keep with us on in our Discord or on Twitter to get the final call on those two guys. But in my preparations here, I have them both counted as out. So a couple things, Andrew. I want to get your response to this. The last time Dallas played Utah, Mitchell sat, and Utah just massacred the Mavericks. Now you've got two starters dinged up. They're playing a fresh, I should say, Utah team. It's an island game for them. They don't have anybody hurt still. They haven't all year pretty much. And don't you think that spread is too low? Am I crazy?
No, I'm with you.
I thought it'd be an 8-point spread to be at the least.
Yeah, because Utah, they blow people out in general, and like you said,
right.
they couldn't be more rested. They played Saturday. They only played half the game because they absolutely destroyed Orlando,
Yep.
and Conley was already resting on the back-to-back, so they're ready to go.
And it hurts me as a Mavs fan, but I'm recommending Utah, minus the points because I think they lambaste the Mavs. Now, maybe these guys will get rolled in and they can step up and give them a game, but it seems 5.5 is a tiny number. I mean, you can be up 3 at the end in a close game and get a couple, have a couple fouls you got to take, and all of a sudden it's 7 or whatever. But I don't know. It's painful, and I'm glad there's a lot of games at 7, so I can flip around and I don't actually have to semi-root against the Mavericks. But I just don't see them being able to step up in this game. But here's the thing: because I think it's going to be a blowout on the Utah side, which is a bold prediction on a 5-point spread, and I hope I'm wrong. But from DFS standpoint, I don't like the game. I don't like the pace. I think the defense is great with Utah and improving for Dallas. Luke is way too expensive, even with KP out. They're going to double him. Snyder's a great coach. They are going to get the ball out of his hands, and they have some good defenders, Conley and Royce O'Neal. They'll take turns on with Luka, and I don't like the game. I know there's if the guys sit, you can be tempted to play a couple of periphery guys for Dallas, but risky against Utah. And then on the Utah side, they just all share the ball so well. And I don't see them having to grind out the last 6 minutes with Mitchell taking over. So the only play I would consider here, and I'm thinking of doing it, but I just a little too pricey, is Gobert. I mean, he's rested. He's come back now from that injury. He seems to be okay. If they can keep it close enough, I think Gobert is a reasonable play against the Mavericks, who struggle against the center position. But mostly, Andrew, I think I'm going to try to pass this game, if at all possible, with Gobert as a possibility if I have the salary.
Yeah, Utah is almost a complete pass for me. The only guy I would consider is Gobert, especially in a cash game. But I like the more expensive and cheaper centers a little bit more on this slate. So I think Utah will be a full pass for me.
Okay.
On the Dallas side, if Porzingis and Richardson are out, then there's a couple guys I would consider. Boban is the first one. If he starts again,
Right.
great price. I mean, if he starts, he basically gives you 10x as long as something wacky doesn't happen and he plays 12 minutes because he is an incredible DFS point per minute guy. We love him here, and
He is amazing. Although Gobert is the toughest matchup he could possibly get. That's
right,
the only problem.
but
But I'm with you.
yeah,
I mean, his points per minutes played are ridiculous.
yeah, and he gets to stand next to him defensively and just get all the defensive rebounds. He doesn't have to chase him out to the perimeter. But you're right.
Right.
I mean, Boban usually just absolutely dominates whoever's guarding him in the paint when he gets it. He just those little baby hooks and
Yeah.
so many offensive rebounds and putbacks where he's just sort of playing by himself at the rim. He won't be able to do that against Gobert. So this is
No.
the one matchup where I would hesitate a little bit.
Yeah. Me too.
The other guys,
Me too.
if Jay Rich is out, then THJ could be a GPP option, or Brunson. He's been really steady here for quite a while now.
Yes.
THJ really a little bit scoring dependent, but worth a look potentially in a GPP for me.
Yeah. And the other thing to reason to fade this game, if they do dial up Boban, which they very well may, it just makes the game even that much slower. I mean, it really slows down the Mavs when he's out there. He's effective, but they don't push the ball at all
Right.
because he can't do it.
All right. We are going to see the ball pushed a lot in this next one. It is a juicy matchup. Sacramento,
Yeah.
Minnesota.
Stack
City, 235.5 total on betus.com.pa, our presenting sponsor. And Sacramento favored by 4. And it's an island game for both teams. And
Yeah.
both top 10 in pace, both bottom 4 in defense. And
Ding,
Sacramento,
ding, ding. We have a winner.
we do. And Sacramento been right around 9th and 10th offensively here for quite a while. So 5 of the 6 variables you want. Minnesota's defense or offense, their efficiency is low. So that's the only thing we don't like. But everything else says, get major ownership here. And for most of my lineups right now, I'm planning to get the 2 studs on opposite sides here. De'Aaron Fox for Sacramento and the big cat, Karl Anthony Towns for Minnesota. On the Sacramento side, the only injury news here, we've got Hassan Whiteside questionable. And then on the Minnesota side, a lot of the guards are doubtful.
Yeah.
D'Angelo Russell is doubtful. He might get back out there. Jalen Noel, doubtful. Rubio, doubtful. And Beasley, doubtful.
That's crazy.
So let's just assume all those guys are out. Then Jordan Mclaughlin is going to be your value point guard as a starter. He played 42 minutes in that last game with Noel getting banged up. He had solid return, and it's a great matchup. So he's playable for me. The big cat, let me jump right over to him next. He's had 6 straight games over 50 fantasy points, 6 straight double-doubles, and it's a great matchup against Holmes and Sacramento. So I like Cat here quite a bit. You could get another starter for Minnesota if you really want to stack this game. Anthony Edwards, a little bit pricey, but he could do it. Jaden McDaniels is still a fine price, around $5K. So I probably will have a starter or 2 minimum for Minnesota. And with Sacramento, like I said, Fox is probably going to be locked in for me. And the prices on the other wing guys, Halliburton, Hield, are fine. You could go with one of those guys as well. Probably won't get to Barnes or Holmes. Terrence Davis has been noteworthy off the bench, taking a bunch of shots.
He looked great. Yeah.
Took 10 threes in the last game, made 7 of them. Decent price. But you've got McLaughlin on the other side, just a few more hundred on each site, getting bigger minutes and more of an opportunity. So, I'm going to have a ton of exposure here. What are your thoughts on Fox and Cat?
Well, I'm with you on Fox. I think he's one of, probably my first point guard in. I mean, it's just perfect scenario for him going against a shorthanded Minnesota backcourt. And man, has Fox played well. I mean, if recently it looked like an all-star flat out. I mean, just terrific. I definitely like Fox. I'm not going to go with Cat though. Not that I don't like him. I think he's going to do just fine. I had to make the decision if I was going to buy up for Randall or buy up for Cat. I can't do both. And I decided on Randall. The only reason is I respect Holmes' defense. I think he's stout enough. He's a little undersized compared to Cat, but his positioning is good. I think he can get maybe get Cat in a little foul trouble. Cat likes to reach and strip and stuff. So that's my theory there. Not real strong, but you can't pay up for everybody. So I definitely love Fox. I do like the cheap Terrence Davis's value. I mean, I know 7 for 10 is not, it's unrealistic, and he's certainly not going to do that again. But just his role in the offense and how much he was doing out there all the way around at his price, I think, is a nice bargain. So I'm considering him. I always consider Halliburton because I think he seems like the guy that's ready to break a slate. I know he's had a few really good games, but I'm going to look at him a little bit. The two guys I'm locking in on Minnesota are Mclaughlin and Edwards. I think Mclaughlin might be the highest owned player on the slate at his price with the amount of minutes and against the worst defensive team. I mean, it's just no brainer to play him at that price. I don't think he can. It's one of those where you have to eat the chalk, even if it's as a blocker, because everybody's going to have a cheap guy in there that's probably going to get 8x. So I like him, and I love Anthony Edwards here. Sacramento's terrible on defense. They give up a bunch of threes. Edwards, with all those guys out, his eyes light up. He's looking for his next shot, as we're speaking here. So I think he gets volume shots up. His athleticism is nuts. Once he gets it all together, if he stays focused, man, that dude has impressed me recently. And he can get some good periphery stats, blocks. He gets blocks and some steals. So I'm real high on Edwards and McLaughlin. McDaniels is tempting. I'll give a look at him at that price. Again, it wouldn't hurt to stack 3 Minnesota guys on a 7-game slate where we have some, churn and fall asleep games like Cleveland, San Antonio, and Detroit, Oklahoma City. So, and even New York, Brooklyn, in my opinion. So, going 2v2 or 3v2 in this, I really like. And but the definite lock washers for me right now are Fox, McLaughlin, and Edwards.
Excellent. Yeah, that one's going to be a key game. A lot of fun to track that one. Hopefully it'll stay close.
And I'm sure it won't be highly owned in the DFS space out there.
Exactly. Well, it is
all right.
It is a juicy matchup. Before we get to the next one, Coach,
yes.
Just want to invite folks to join us this week because it's such a juicy week for DFS.
Is that the word of the day, by the way, juicy?
It is, because we've got the Masters this week, and we had top 1% lineups on both sites over the weekend, which was a great tune-up for our favorite golf tournament of the year. So make sure to tune into that podcast tomorrow. But jump in with us as members this week with all these sports going. Go to dfscoachtalk.com, grab whichever membership you want. They're based on length of time, and they all have access to all of our sports. So whichever period you like, 3 days, week, month, the entire baseball season, you name it. So join at dfscoachtalk.com, or you still see that offer on the bottom of the screen on YouTube for betus.com.pa, $149. Use the promo code CoachTalk. It has to be your first deposit. But if you use that promo code, then you'll have a free membership with us until June 1st.
I'll sign up. I'm ready.
Okay, great.
All right, let's hit. We've got 3 games left. This is the 5th 7:00 game, I think, right? Or 6th?
Correct, 5th.
Yeah, there's a million of them. So we got the Detroit Pistons at the Oklahoma City Thunder. So that's the kind of game that, unless you're family or friends of the players or you play DFS, this probably isn't the game you're going to tune into with all these other ones going on. But, here we go. There still may be some guys to take. Detroit's on the first night of a back-to-back. It's only a 3-game or 3-point spread. It's a paltry 213, though, lowest on the slate. And Ellington and Plumlee are out for Detroit, so there might be a secret squirrel in Isaiah Stewart here. We always talk about him. Maybe he gets the long run tonight. And then on the Oklahoma City side, Hall and Roby are out, and our man Justin Jackson, the ex-Mav, is waived today by the Thunder, so or going to be waived. So with Dort being still in concussion protocol, I doubt he'll be back, but you have to make sure and get that news. And then there's bunch of other guys out that, like the Muscalas and obviously Shea and for the other side, Magruder, Okafor, just some of their bench. So both teams are not that deep, but they don't have much that's exciting here. Saban Lee, I'm done with him after my one failed attempt to put him in there. I don't trust him. As far as I can throw him, he's not ready. Josh Jackson, maybe, but again, you have no clue what to expect from him. The rookie Sadiq Bey is playing like a rookie sometimes and just disappears in stretches. Jeremy Grant is okay, but expensive. The guy that, we need to talk about here, I'll certainly play him on DraftKings and Yahoo where you can play more than one center, but it is gut-wrenching to take up your center spot by him, but we've been touting him. Isaiah Stewart is really good. I love the way he plays. He hustles. He's going to get you tons of steals, blocks, rebounds, and he can score the ball. He runs the floor. At his price, I really like him. I don't know if he'll make my main FanDuel lineup because of the center distinction, but
He's actually today he's a power forward over there.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
Okay, he's lock and load then. I take that back. So that's fantastic news. That's going to help me get that value that I need. So thank you for pointing that out. That's great. So at power forward, I love him. And then again, you can use them at dual positions on the other sites other than FanDuel. So great play there. And then on the Thunder side, Maladon's been good, and he's playing big minutes. He's been very, getting to his number. His price has drifted up a little bit, so I'm not sure. Mykhailiuk's been fine. He's made, his number quite a bit. I would think you like him somewhat, but, Ty Jerome's still sneaking a few minutes from him. We aren't 100% sure on the Dort news. I don't expect him to play with the concussion protocol. Of course, he's made my player pool the last couple days, and that's Pokashevsky. Now that he gets decent minutes, he can be considered. And then, of course, Moses Brown. But, his price has gone up so much like crazy. So, it's tough to bite that off. But not bad plays, and you're going to get decent minutes for a lot of these guys, but it's just they're just slotted right behind those two big games for me, and so I don't think I'll get a lot of attention here other than Isaiah Stewart, but I am tempted. What do you think about the Thunder today?
The Thunder side of things, you look at Maladon, you look at that last game with Detroit and New York. Elf Payton had that great output against Detroit. Nobody could stop him. And so I think Maladon's got the potential, kind of likely to fall through the cracks too in terms of ownership with some of the value guards like McLaughlin. So you get him at low ownership, but because of these other values, I probably won't go there much. And Svi is still a good price on FanDuel. He had a real dud last time out. Moses, like you said, is expensive now, and the last two games they've really split the minutes with he and Tony Bradley.
Yeah.
But could Moses clean up with the extra size against Isaiah Stewart? I think he could. So a GPP option. That's probably about it for me on OKC. I'm more interested in Detroit with Isaiah Stewart, as you are. Love the opportunity for him to start. And he's got a great price tag here on both sites, but I don't think it's going to be an easy situation for him because of Moses Brown's great length. I think Stewart's going to have more trouble. He has been a good points per minute guy, so he's going to be hard to fade. But I'm a little concerned about how he does against Moses Brown. And then Jeremy Grant is playable for me on FanDuel at 6,400. And I'm curious about Dort here on the other side. I think he's questionable. I think there's a chance he plays. If he
Right.
does, I think there's a chance he'll spend some time on Jeremy Grant because I think Pokuševski's too small in terms of, he doesn't have any bulk.
Skinny. He's the
Yeah,
dude's like
he's skinny.
7'2".
Yeah, he's really skinny.
Yeah. He can't get low. That center of gravity's just too high.
Right. So I think Grant could have a strong game if Dort is out. They just don't have a good matchup for him.
Right.
But it'd be strange to invest in both Grant and Stewart, two power forwards from Detroit. I don't know if I'll do that. So we'll play with that. And then you've got that interesting dynamic of Diallo and Svi having been traded for each other now,
That's
facing
right.
off against each other again in OKC.
Yeah.
Diallo is pretty expensive, though, for his role and his minutes. And you know what jumped out at me? One of my favorite anecdotes here of the slate from a box score recently is what Detroit did against New York. For the guys that I consider as guards, there were 8 of them that played between 12 and 24 minutes.
Oh Lord.
What?
Yeah, that's
Listen to this.
DFS nightmare.
Oh, Saban Lee, 13. Josh Jackson, 23 minutes. Frank Jackson, 15. Dennis Smith Jr., 12. Killian Hayes, 20. Ellington, 12. Diallo, 24. Corey Joseph, 17. Now,
Oh my gosh.
we're not going to have Ellington in this one, but what a complete mess with
I may
those
never
guys.
play a Detroit guard the rest of the season. That's
And
all I'm gonna say.
it's tough because you have guys like Josh Jackson who can smash, but he can also have complete duds.
Yeah,
So
too risky.
I'm with you. It's too risky on those guys. So I'm looking at Grant or Stewart only. And by the way, I do think there's a chance Okafor is back in the lineup and he'll play that backup center role, play 18 minutes or so. I think it would make sense that they're going to sit Plumlee when Okafor is ready to get back out there.
I have him listed as out, Okafor,
Yeah,
according to RotoWire.
I was looking at
But
DraftKings, and I think they've got him as the note said he's questionable and that he might be ready to go.
okay. Well,
So
just more confusion for that team then.
right, exactly. All right, let's move to the last 7 o'clock game. Cleveland in San Antonio to play the Spurs, who are 9-point favorites. Another low total here of 215.
Yeah.
It's an island game for both teams. Big news on the Cleveland side, question marks for Jarrett Allen, Larry Nance, Dylan Windler. On the San Antonio side, Lonnie Walker and Trey Lyles are out. Gorgie Jang is questionable. Now this
Has
is
he
not
played for them yet, Gord? I don't
he
think he's suited up
I
yet.
think he did. I think he played a few
Oh, did
minutes.
he?
Yep.
Okay.
So slow pace game here, 25th and 18th. These
Yeah.
offenses are 30th and 19th. Cleveland does have a bad defense. They're 24th. San Antonio average at 13th. So just not a good game environment at all. And we don't know
No.
what the front court is going to be for Cleveland. Love had a double-double in 23 minutes.
Yeah.
If he starts again, he's 4,600 on FanDuel, which is a little bit interesting to me. But probably if I'm going to play anybody from Cleveland, it's Sexton. You can have some wing players be productive against San Antonio. He should be the focal point of the offense. Off the bench, Torian Prince played really nicely. But if any of these guys are back, Nance, Allen, then I think his minutes will go down and unlikely for him to hit that value again. On the San Antonio side, how about Keldon Johnson? This was his 23 and 21 game when they played
Yeah.
before, and it was the same starting lineup for San Antonio. It's not like DeRozan was out and he got more shots. It was the same guys you'd expect to start tonight. On the Cleveland side, Allen and Nance did start that game, so we could have a different front court, but I don't see Wade and Love, making it that much tougher for Keldon Johnson to hit value, and he's a really good price on both sites. So he's playable for me. He had another 20 and 10 game last time out, so he's trending back in the right direction. Pirtle needs to be mentioned. You know that he's had 4 straight double doubles,
Yeah.
been right around 6 or 7x. His price has crept up a little bit, but a guy that I think in general gets overlooked, and he's really been solid lately. But in this game, I don't want to get much exposure here. It could be a Keldon Johnson, maybe Kevin Love if Allen and Nance are still out, or I might just pass this one.
Well, this is easy for me, man. This is by far my least favorite game on the slate. I feel so much more comfortable just fading the living daylights out of it because, these two teams have stung me on and off through the year when I've decided to take the risk of playing a guy or two, and it just never seems to work out. I mean, Dean Wade is now on that SHIT list that I have with 5 or 6 guys, and he's going to stay on it because he didn't do diddly do. He won't be rostered for me. But, I know Sexton and Garland at times are okay plays, but they do split a lot of the usage, and they're going against a good defensive backcourt in Murray and White. I just see no reason to torture yourself and try to squeeze a game out of Love or even Pirtle or Murray or DeRozan, even at his price. It's going to be a slow-paced game with two teams that aren't good offensively and with coaches, especially Pop, that who knows what he's going to pull out of his bag of tricks here. So I want nothing to do with this game, not even considering anybody, Andrew. That's how much I think it's a pass.
Okay.
All right, last game, and it is the solo late night sweat game by an hour. It's the Phoenix Houston game. Is that all we have left?
That's it.
Okay, so I am actually on target here. Phoenix by 12.5. So we got our big double-digit spread game right here. Does the game blow out or not? Always a possibility with Phoenix. They've played fantastic ball. Even with that big 12.5 point spread, it's only a 219 over under. So, it seems like Houston games, you could consider high scoring there for a while. They've slowed down a little bit. They've got Avery Bradley in there and Jayshawn Tate. And with Christian Wood back, he's a massive difference for them defensively. So no longer are Houston games like a big target for us because they're scoring and offensive or defensive prowess has changed so much with those guys back. So, you look at this game, 26th rated pace for Phoenix. They're going to keep it under control. They're not going to let Houston get out and run. It is a pace-up game for Phoenix with Houston being 5th. So, you can consider some things there. But then defensively, Phoenix 6th and just getting better and better every game. And Houston, like I say, they're 14th now. So they're a little bit better than the mid-level spot. And that's because of those guys that I mentioned. Sterling Brown, too. Brown, Bradley, Tate, and Wood. All of a sudden, you got some defenders in there compared to, Gordon and House and some of those guys that can't defend you or me. So that brings me to some pause there. The good thing is House is probably going to be out. I saw him get hurt. We know all those other guys are still out. Wall, Nawaba, Gordon, Exum for Houston, Kaminsky and Nader for Phoenix. But Phoenix is similar to Utah. It's no coincidence that those two have the best records. They haven't had anybody really out or hurt much at all. So that's a big portion of it. The best, the best reliability is availability or whatever they call it, and that's Phoenix and Utah this year. And it's no different. And Phoenix shares the ball. They play good team offense. Chris Paul gets it done, but doesn't really blow any slates up. And Devin Booker, Devin Booker is playing very great basketball, and nobody's really talking about him. But if you look at his stats over the last 6 weeks, or really the whole year, but the last 6 weeks, he's been as good as anybody. Everybody always talks about Harden and Mitchell and these guys and Luka, but you take a look at Devin Booker's stats. He's really been good. But he's going to get some Avery Bradley defense here, I believe, or some of this other rotation of Houston guys that can defend pretty well. And I like the fact that Phoenix plays the style that they play, but it's not conducive to DFS rostering, and we've talked about that multiple times. But we've been able to squeeze in smaller slates, somewhat of a value guy in Crowder or Bridges or something like that. But it doesn't add up to me in this game. And with most of my roster being out of those two big games, and then a couple of key pay up one-offs, I just don't have space for anyone here. Christian Wood, I think, is terrific. He's probably the guy that I'd like to put in there, but he's super expensive. Kevin Porter was disappointing the last time, and I get concerned with the turnovers and the fact that it's against such a savvy defensive player like Chris Paul. And Porter's price has gone way up. So this game, Andrew, I am not going to have probably any exposure, but am I wrong, or what do you think?
Well, I feel the same way on the Phoenix side. The depth and balance there with the higher prices for Paul and Booker probably won't go to anybody on the Phoenix side. With Houston though, if Wall is out again, and I think he will be, Porter Jr. is in play for me still. He's been great on back to backs, and I know he had a bunch of turnovers last night, but the price tag is okay for me with the opportunity to run the show, and it's not a great matchup, but just I think I want to take advantage of the lower ownership because of the bad game last game and because of this matchup to have some exposure to him. And I also am struck by the low price of Sterling Brown still, who's more of a GPP option, but 3,900 on FanDuel for a guy who, when he starts, he can get you 30 fantasy points. I think is worth looking at. And then I'm also curious what they do with that fifth starting spot if House is out. Do they go big, double big with Kelly Olynyk, or not?
Kelly O's been playing some ball.
He really has. He really has. So he's worth looking at. It's tough though, he's another center on FanDuel.
Yeah.
So because of the position, I probably won't get to him, but probably focus more on the starters, and I probably will have some exposure to Porter Jr. and Brown.
Very nice.
All right, well, that wraps up the 7-game slate. Hopefully it's a very nice night for all of you out there with your lineups. If you want to grab ours, then jump in as members. On FanDuel, we give out full lineups every night, cash lineups, the GPP lineup. Coach makes the full Yahoo lineup, and then we have the DraftKings Coach's Clipboard to get you ready on DraftKings. So any questions, reach out to us on Twitter at DFS Coach Talk. You can find the coach at JoeSarvadi. You can find me at Language Olympic. And if you like what you've heard today, we'd love it if you would subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, or at least give the thumbs up on the way out. Coach, any final thoughts here?
Watch out for Baylor tonight. That's all I'm going to say. I'm
right.
Going with the dog.
All right. Yeah, it should be fun. And definitely, I'll at least catch the second half of that one after we get this NBA slate wrapped up with hopefully a bunch of winners. So thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to join us tomorrow for basketball and golf as we look to crush it in DFS.